Hey, Professor Hamilton here. Going to talk through the Chapter 4 homework. So you have these solutions. This chapter is, in some respects, the last of sort of our micro boot camp. So if you survive this, you're like Navy SEALs equivalent of in economics, whatever that may mean. Yeah. So this is if the last chapter had some calculus and some regression models and some other ideas too that were pretty challenging. This chapter, probably the biggest challenge is that we have to think about consumers in two respects. One is fairly straightforward, and that is there's some kind of budget constraint, and we have to graph that and some other things. Where you have to use your economic imagination a little bit more is on this idea of utility, which, yes, there's some measure of happiness, but unlike say a budget, which is defined by amount of money and prices and quantities, what makes us satisfied, or what two combinations of work and leisure would make us equally well off, or pizza and I don't know, steak would make us well off. The same well off. So so we draw these utility curves. Again, if you can kind of go with it, that's the best way. They do make some sense that more of each is usually better if they're goods. And anyway, we'll come to that in a few problems. So the first one is this concept, the market rate of substitution. And essentially that is just the trade-off. So in question number 1, there was two goods, and this chapter always X and Y. We're kind of stuck with 2 unless we go to 3 dimensions, and then we can't graph even in 3 dimensions very easily on our own. So so this idea of market rate of substitution is just the ratio of the prices. If X is $15 and Y is $5. Let me get organized here. Then yeah, you can buy 3 times more of Y, the cheaper item in this case. So and that's going to have to on the graph, that's going to be the slope of this budget constraint. So B was draw this opportunity set. So they have $600. That's given the problem, and also in part C here. Excuse me, they have $300 originally. Okay, so again, I'm pointing at my computer, which doesn't make any sense because you're looking at a different recording of my computer. But anyway, on the vertical axis, where if we took all our $300 and spent it on Y at $5 each, we could buy 60. If we spend it all on X, 600 divided by 15 is, or excuse me, 300 divided by 15 is 20. And then the part C says, well, if we double our income, that will shift this opportunity set out to the right. So now, for example, if we had $600 and at $5 each, we could buy 120 Y, twice as much, with twice the income. Okay. All right, so that's number 1. Not too difficult there. Number 2, this is one we have to do a little bit more. They kind of start you out kind of in the middle problem, and you have to go backwards. So so you're given the price of good X is $5, and we can see here originally you could buy 20 of either item using your entire income, which at this point we don't know. We'll find it in the next step. So that must mean that the price of these 2 goods are the same, $5. Part B then says if we now we know the price of both of them were 5. So $5 times a quantity of 20 gives us $100 of total income. Okay, so looking at those, either one of those extreme points, all of X or all of Y, gives us our we can calculate our income from that. Okay. C is, all right, so this point A where they've spent, they bought 10, or yeah, they bought 10 of Y, and that, you can see the math here, that also corresponds. In this case, it's, you know, it doesn't have to be equal prices, but same idea you could find if they were different prices. And in this case, yes, if they spent $50, half their money on X, they'd have $50 left to spend on Y, or vice versa. So that's 10 units of each. C is, so the budget changes. Okay, so it looks like, again, oh, the graph is in the book. It's not the one above here. So just scale here. Okay. And let's see, where was I? Yes. So it looks like the price of Y is yeah, it must have been split in half, because we can now buy twice as much. We can buy 40 units of Y. Okay, and we can see it's not an income, at least not a direct income increase, because X is still stuck at 20. So it was the price of Y that drove that pivoting of the opportunity budget constraint. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is what. So that's what it says right here. So to be able to buy twice as much of Y with the same income, the price must have been cut in half. And yes, so in general, higher indifference curves are going to be, usually we think more to the northeast, pushing out that way. In this case, they're buying, let's see, a lot more of Y, and actually a little less than X than they originally were. And we'll come back to that, I think, in the very last problem too. So there's this substitution effect that essentially Y had two benefits. One, it made itself look more attractive, so to speak. It's not a real thing. It's not a person, but it made it, the price was more attractive because it was half price sale, say, and also because that would, per unit, it would consume less income. It essentially give us more money. So there was more money to spend. And since it's a normal good, we bought even more Y than we would have. So, all right, number 5 is a quick break from calculation problems. And I think this is kind of interesting. They do this, I think, in 2 or 3 of these problems here, of how these different kind of combination sales can change the budget constraint or the opportunities there. So. And so the quick summary here is, you can read what is written, I print it there. But the way I think of it, yeah, either similar to what they have here, if it's literally half price with no quantity, you know, like Kroger's, you have to buy 5 or 10. Actually, you don't have to buy 5 or 10, but anyway, you could buy 1 and get half price off. Okay, so you could say, well, I mean, if something like a can of soup, all right, I'll buy 2, and I'll get the second one free. That wouldn't that be the same kind of deal? Well, for soup it probably would be, but for something like even a shirt at Kohl's where it's $50 and you just want one shirt for $25, you don't want 2 shirts for $50. So, or, you know, again, more expensive items, you know, a car, I don't know, or a vacation or something. I want to spend 1 week half price. I don't want 2 weeks for the price of 1. I don't have 2 weeks vacation. Okay, actually I'd love to have 2 weeks vacation. But anyway, all right, so that's just kind of a thought question, a little break from the math. All right. Number 11 is about the generic versus brand name. It's actually, I think there's all kinds of interesting related stories of this, of why economically, if they're, say, chemically equivalent and taste equivalent, then you would just buy the cheaper item. Okay, it'd be like one's in a blue package, one's in a red package. I buy the cheaper one. I don't buy based on color, but people will buy based on all those commercials were fed in the news hour and primetime TV and what have you. So, all right. Forgot to turn my email off. Okay, back to the show here. All right, so the idea here was this person, though, it says, well, many consumers do consider generic and the brand name as perfect substitutes. They just buy whatever's cheaper. That's what I tend to do for things at the grocery store, and my wife does the opposite, let's just say. So here we have a consumer who's always willing to substitute 4 pounds of generic sugar for 2 pounds of brand name sugar. So in effect, they like the brand name twice as much. They'd be willing to pay twice as much for it. So originally, though, they says, well, if the cost is 3 to 1, well, they don't like it that much. So then at that point, they would go ahead and spend all their money on the generics. At the end of the problem, the ratio goes to, I think, 1.5 to 1. And in that case, then they would switch back to the brand name because they like it twice as much. So the price is 50% more, but they really prefer the brand name, so they're willing to cover that 50%. They're just not willing to pay triple price as in the first part of the problem. Okay. Number 12. Okay. So I'm an economist, and so I like to throw in something that's not just about corporate business or what have you. So this is kind of an interesting idea here, and we can relate this to some other examples as well. So just a few other, it's kind of this weird budget constraint, and back to what I was saying about 5-10 minutes ago. Lost track of time here. It could seem constraining. Well, we're only looking at X and Y, and what about everything else? Well, sometimes what people will do is, well, let's focus on one item of interest and then lump everything else together, say in this person's budget. So we don't have to say food and shelter and car and insurance. All other things are on that vertical axis that we'd spend money on. So we can buy 50, it's kind of strange, what would be 50 units of other goods when they're cars and, books and how you combine those. But we'll go with it here. So this 50 comes from, they had a budget of 600, and the average price of these other goods is 12. So 600 divided by 12 is 50. Okay. And then if they spent, this is kind of the original one here, food costs $4, say for lunch, they could buy 150 if you continue this. So you may want to draw that on your printout if you print this out. Next, if we add the average of $284, if we spent that all on food, that would be $884. The original 600 plus 284 divided by the price of food, $4. This would be actually 221, just past 220. And then this point up here, which you can't originally, at least legally, meet, if we took all 884 and spent it on things other than food, which is not the spirit of SNAP. We want people to have nutritious food meals for them and their kids, and for ourselves maybe if we're on SNAP. But if you could spend all of that 884 on food, this would be 73.66 up at the vertical axis. Okay. Of course, you're constrained though to really your original amount, because legally you can't go and spend SNAP to buy TV or to buy, cash it out. Conceivably, yes, you could, probably not dollar for dollar, but maybe you buy someone a bag of groceries and they give you cigarettes. Okay, not you, but okay. Or they give you cash and you can spend it on gas money or something. So, and that happens, I suppose. Okay, so, all right, 17. Okay. Yeah, this one, let me kind of give you a few points here of reference. So this was the pretty practical idea of, well, what's the better strategy? Not really getting into strategy so much here, but just from a a pure budget comparison, how much does it save consumers if we do a flat percentage discount per item, or we have, it's kind of like buy one get one free, though now it's buy 10 and get one free. Okay, so the blue line is actually a straight line. That is the with a 3% discount. So if you had if you just bought 1 dozen, okay, normally that'd be $6. The blue line, which they actually are very close at the on the upper part there. Then you would have, well, you have $200 total. I think that's why it's at 200 intercept there. But then that would drop down if you bought one. It would be $5.82 with a 3% discount. Okay. If you bought 10 with a 3% discount, it would be, instead of $60, it would be $58.20. Okay. And if you bought 11, I'll go ahead and say that. If you bought 11 at $5.82 each, that would be, I think, $64.02. Okay. If you so then the red line has kind of these strange little kinks in it, or short plateaus, and I'll talk about that. So if you only bought 1 dozen, so you can't buy just one, but 1 dozen, that would be $6. That'll be $6. I sound like a good sales clerk there. Okay. If you bought 10, it would be 60, and then, well, 10 and 11 are the same. That's why we have that little short little step there, because you buy 10 dozen, the 11th is free. So with the buy 10 get one free, it would be $60 for 10 and $60 for 11, and that's where it crosses over the blue line there, because to buy 11 on the pure 3% discount was $64.02, so you saved about $4 at that level. Okay. And then from there on out, then you can see that if you're a big bagel person, a lot of carbs, but they're good. Okay, a little cream cheese. Okay, all kinds of stuff you pick up in this class. You never, this is bonus material. So anyway, so if you're buying for bulk, for the Salvation Army, luncheon or whatever, that's where you'll make your discounts on these buy 10 get one free, which is, so that's like a essentially a 10% discount on every 10th one rather than a 3% discount. So yeah, you're going to get ahead of the game. Okay, unless you're like me and you only buy a few dozen a year or something. Okay, all right, that's pretty challenging. All right, good. No more graphs or math here for the last two. 22. So yeah, I thought this answer here, as I read through it again, and I don't know why anyone's gift cards are merely a fad. Well, we need to, ridiculous, just crazy. I like the whatever. So it says here retailers experience significant benefits. Okay, and I thought that was interesting. I have to think about this. So it minimizes product returns. Okay, and that, well, I guess you don't return a gift card for one thing, but I don't know if it's saying that would be when you buy something with a gift card, you could still return it and maybe get cash even. So maybe you would actually, there'd be slightly higher returns on gift cards because people are maybe a little bit unethically buying something and just coming back, and or you can't put on the gift card, maybe, if that's the policy. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Okay, not that I've done this a lot, but I have a few times. Okay, that is, use gift cards, not the illegal trying to turn them into cash so I can buy my cigarettes. Okay, that's a joke. Don't turn me in. Okay. Okay, so it also says gift cards can also benefit consumers. Okay. And you can kind of read what it says there. I think that's, I mean, I wouldn't say it's absolutely wrong, but it's almost, it's like from what perspective? A gift benefits consumers. So if you give me a $50 gift card to Red Lobster, okay? That would be nice, okay? Don't do that, though. At least not during class. And so that would expand, so that would be $50 that I wouldn't have to spend if I was going there, or in general, I could substitute for another meal I was going to cook at home or something. So in that respect, oh yeah, it benefits consumers. I would say, though, normally, this is kind of a big, strange economists make this kind of silly argument. Like, why do we give Christmas gifts for? Wouldn't people prefer cash? Okay, so, because if you gave them $100, well, then they could go and buy that $100 gift that you were going to give them, or they could really use it to their top preference if it was something else. They could pay some bills. They could buy not toy A, but toy B or something. So I think it also benefits retailers, and this kind of gets more into the business end of it, is as I understand it, and it, if you get one of these, you're always like worried, especially if you have kids, like, did you lose your, whatever, these little amusement, what do you call them, with the pizza. See, this is why we need live classes, so someone can be like, anyway, I think we call it something else now in Lexington. Anyway, where they play all the games. Anyway, the kids have like they get a card at school for selling, $1,000 of cookie dough to the neighbors, so they get a $10 gift card or something. You're like, don't lose it, don't lose it, and they do, and then you spend like 3 hours looking for it, and you find it a year later and it's expired. So very, very sad stories. So anyway, my point finally after that lost, mind ramble there was, yes, a part of the benefit to retailers is people buy them, they give them their $20 to buy the card, and then they give it away and the person forgets to use it, or it expires, or has some whatever. So all right, 24 is the graph is in the book, not in the solution here, so kind of have to look back and forth here. So if Coke compared to other cola products were to double the price, that sounds by itself pretty ambitious, okay? To some people, Coke and Pepsi and others maybe are perfect substitutes, or at least nearly so. I know other people are pure, they just won't drink Pepsi, okay, or just whatever, okay. So, so there's still some differences there. But yeah, so one thing would be, well, yeah, if they double their price, there's really two things that are going to hurt Coke, okay, the sales of Coke, that is. And it's laid out in the graph here. This is pretty challenging. This is like intermediate micro for economics majors. So this is, you have to do quite a bit of mental gymnastics in terms of holding utility constant and shifting the budget constraint, and then shifting the budget constraint. And anyway, it's you can go through that, I think, on this example. If you do that, probably what you want to do is on that lower dark blue curve, the budget line with a price of $2, draw another U-shaped utility curve that intersects to the left of 7, and that's basically what the answer is going to be. But a little more just intuitively, yes, if you increase the price of your product, two things are going to hurt you, okay? And the first one is usually the dominant one, and that's the substitution effect. That now, compared to competitive products, you are relatively more expensive, or at least more expensive than you were. So some people on the fence are going to opt to buy Pepsi instead of Coke if it goes even from $1 to $1.10 if there's a Coke and Pepsi machine right next to each other. Secondly is this idea of, well, there's also an income effect. If the price of Coke is twice as much, and it's a little harder because it's like, oh, it's not like that's 25% of my budget or something, but in theory anyway, or at least in some small way, that's also indirectly reducing your income, because it's it's almost like an inflation effect, that this one product in this case is for the same number of Cokes, it's going to take a bigger chunk of your income, which effectively kind of lowers your income. So, all right, so that was all the questions there. Hopefully this is useful, and I'll probably do this each week. I think it's good in terms of the homework. People that may just have a question on 1 or 2 questions can fast forward to those 2 or 3 minutes, and people that want to watch this with their families can do so. You know, it's cheaper than Netflix. It's free. Okay, you've paid for it $2,000 or whatever. But no, all joking aside, if you have any other questions about these, by all means, if you're local, and I know a few of you are, and some of you are in New York or far-flung places, but we can still, even there, we can jump on Zoom and I can pull this up, or we can, anyway, we can go through it at a more careful pace if I went too quickly on anything. So last note, and I will let you go, and if you can just X me out, but is yeah, so these 4 chapters, pretty tough in terms of, oh yeah, this is a lot of economics. Okay, this is really the, as I said, the kind of the base camp, the boot camp, I guess I said, that then next chapter, and then certainly the rest of the book is more kind of how do we use these concepts of elasticity and budget constraints and what have you to make managerial decisions. So hang in there. The first exam will be coming up next week after we get a couple more chapters in. Very fast-paced, I know, and by all means, again, if I can help you in any way, whether it's meeting together or I will, again, I'll mention, I will put together a study guide for the test so you can know these formulas. But yeah, the best practice is being able to work these homeworks for now. So, all right, thanks for all your efforts. See you around.